Boy, that umbrella of authority is just a huge problem in so many ways. And it's funny because, as I've said before, I was not affiliated with any of these groups or any of these people who are being talked about in the Shiny Happy People documentary. And yet, multiple people who were from the church that I grew up in, the Plymouth Brethren gathering that I was a part of, have posted that exact umbrella image or some variation on it with this umbrella of authority thing. So this complementarian view, or this patriarchal view of somehow you're protected if you're under your authority figure, it's such a dangerous idea. And it's one that so many people in a patriarchal type setting have. It causes so many problems. Again, it's just a perfect setup for abuse victims to be blamed for what happens to them. And then it really, I'll just give you my own personal experience with this, because I think it's important here to recognize what the end result of that kind of a teaching can be. And one of them is that, so whenever something bad happens to a person, the immediate question in their mind is, I must be doing something wrong. I must have done something wrong, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be facing these terrible, terrible things that have happened to me. And it throws everybody for a loop. And the example I'm going to give you here is my own, which is I was sexually abused while my family was serving as missionaries on the mission field. And the person who abused me was someone that my parents had invited into their home and were hosting long-term as a way to help this person get back on his, to get on his feet as an adult. It was a kindness they were doing to him. And I was abused for several years by this person who lived in our home and who was trusted by our family. And so a few years ago, when I finally told my parents about it, they didn't know, or at least they said they didn't, and when it was happening, and I didn't tell them about it in detail. I didn't really tell them, I didn't tell my dad at all, and I didn't tell my mom and my family the full story of what had happened until just a couple of years ago, so like 20 plus years after it had already happened. And my family didn't know how to handle it, because it literally blew their mind. And even though none of them would directly say, well, we thought that if we did the right things that God would protect us. Like, when I say it that directly, they would disagree with that statement. And yet, they had to find a way, they had to find someone to blame for this terrible situation that happened to me. And it couldn't be, and they blamed themselves. My dad blamed himself for not protecting me. And of course there is blame for the abuser, but the abuser has to be protected because he's part of the system. And it was really, it threw everybody, there were so many people who just didn't handle it well.